Hello, and welcome to episode 140 of Retro Encounter, the RPGFan podcast where we play mostly old-ish games and talk about them. Today, this beautiful month of June, we are playing Mass Effect, the original Mass Effect, the one, the only, the one that everyone loves to complain about with good reason for all the jank, but yet still holds a very special place in our hearts, and I believe in all of the hearts of our panelists today. I'm just going to go down the list. We have Liz, Depends on the Species, Turian Maas.
Hello.
And we also have Greg, The Foods of My People, Delmage.
It is a very rich food us Canadians have.
That's right. Canadian bacon.
Canadian bacon, yeah. And we also have Nathan, that's the only kind of person who can protect the galaxy, Lee.
Hello, everybody.
You're very special. You are the prophesized hero.
All right, let's go save the galaxy.
All right, so Nathan's going to save the galaxy and this podcast. Here we go.
Awesome. No pressure.
No pressure, yeah. I'm your host, Caitlin. I've got flexibility, Argyros. If you did not think I was going to use that quote from Mass Effect 2, you do not know me.
It was out of data calibrations.
Yeah, really. I mean, come on. It was Garrus something, so... So, yes, here we are. It's been a while for me on Retro, and it's been a while hosting, but I'm happy to be with some fellow awesome Mass Effect fans and talk about this great game, the initial entry that despite being a little, off-kilter and it had its issues, it was still this great introduction to a series, a trilogy. We're gonna ignore that Andromeda exists, I think, for the purposes of this podcast. That still to this day, I think, is a favorite of a lot of fans of RPGs and video games. So let's just dive in and sort of start by talking about how did we find out about Mass Effect? What's our history with the series, with this game in particular? How did we first play it? Let's see. Randomly, I'm just going to say, Greg, you go first.
How did I find about it? I think you just threw word of mouth, actually. I knew it was out for a while, but I did not have an opportunity to play it actually until about 2010 was when I had my first playthrough, because I came late to that generation of consoles, and it was just one that I was like, space RPG, sign me up. But I think I did play it after Knights of the Old Republic, so I just kind of wanted more of that vibe. And it's, it was a very easy jump after knowing what Knights of the Old Republic set up for it. So that's how it came along for me.
Liz, let's see. I can probably guess, but Liz, tell us how you met with Mass Effect.
I met with Mass Effect in 2011, actually. I did not own an Xbox 360, and I didn't have a PC at the time. I had a really old Mac laptop, so I had to start the series on a PS3 when Mass Effect 2 came out, because 1 did not come out before 2, as far as the PS3 goes. So, of course, I gave it a shot, fell in love with it, and then when I got an Xbox, I played the whole series again on Xbox. And now I'm playing it again on PC, just for you lovely folks. And the rest is history.
So, oh wow, so all 3 versions. That must be interesting comparison.
Yeah, it's been nice. PC is obviously the most different because the graphics are better and the controls are completely different, because I'm getting used to, since last year I've been playing on mouse and keyboard, and it's just oh my god, how do I do things? So I've definitely been fumbling a lot. For sure.
I'm also playing on PC for the very first time. I decided I now have a gaming PC, and I've been meaning to, rebuy some of the BioWare games on PC, and it would make for kind of an interesting discussion, probably, to at least some of the things that are different on PC, like the mini games and whatnot. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. But I originally played it on Xbox 360. I think I got a 360 mostly for this game, and I think for me it was that I guess it was the first trailer where they sort of walked you through some of the systems. They showed the conversation system. They showed an early mission with Garrus and Ashley that isn't in the game anymore, I don't think.
Oh.
There's something where you have a discussion with the two of them and you can really shut them down harsh about what you're doing, and I don't remember it being anything that's in the final game, but it was sort of the whole concept of the thing that drew me in. Like Greg said, a space RPG, and I hadn't really experienced a sort of cinematic space science fiction RPG, or really, for the most part, a cinematic sci-fi game period at that point. So I was like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And like you said, Liz, the rest is history from that point.
Yeah, I'd already come in so late in the series. Everyone had already been raving about it for years. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll play.
So Nathan, what about you? How did you get into Mass Effect?
So I just on a whim, kind of. So I was into my shooter phase of my gaming life, and I walked into my local EV games and just there was a 2 for 20, 30 deal, whatever it was. But anyway, the manager recommended me to play Mass Effect because I think it was 2010 and Mass Effect 2 was coming out later that year. So so for me, I was out of the blue, I just played it and pretty much fell in love with it right as soon as I popped into my 360 for the first time.
Mm.
Yeah, and after that, I just fell in love with this entire series, and now it's still my favorite gaming series, or one of my favorites.
Yeah, definitely.
Each of the games in the trilogy had their own issues, but the strength of the series, I think, is that despite the various stumbles that every game, including this one that we're playing, the original, has, there's something about the world and the characters that just make it stand out. And even I feel like people are probably going to be comparing any future sci-fi, especially space exploration RPGs or games in general, against the sort of bar that has been set by Mass Effect. So,
absolutely, it's on such a grand scale that they've crafted this universe from the ground up, and again, as I was mentioning, it was clear where the roots were placed from Knights of the Old Republic, and BioWare started building their pedigree, and they already had a pedigree of great world building and Baldur's Gate and all that stuff as well. So they're no strangers to a big, massive sandbox to play in, and they just kind of built on what they had already established in Knights of the Old Republic to give players more space, for lack of a better term, to run around in and try and refine those systems further and just create this big mythos for you to sink into and explore. And it's clear, I'd forgotten how much work they have clearly put into this, just looking at the codex in and of itself. Just there's so many entries, there's so much science put into it, and I feel bad for every uncharted planet I go to and do not read the description at all. It's so fascinating, and I know I liked it. I think I did pay more attention to it the first time. This time I'm like, I don't got time. But
I didn't read
love to that
anything.
craft.
It really is incredible.
The first time I definitely
galaxy
did.
built in this game.
Yeah,
forget about just the Uncharted worlds. If you read the descriptions of all of the planets in every system,
Oh, believe me, I tried.
They spent the time to make all those entries too, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Someone got paid to do that, and you're just like, I want to give you the time of day for what you've done, and that you calibrated the temperature and the living conditions and all this stuff, and good on you, but I don't care enough right now. I'm sorry.
Actually, as a brief aside, it's interesting you mentioned, Greg, playing Mass Effect after KOTOR, because I was the exact opposite.
Oh.
Mass Effect 1 was my first BioWare game, and at some point after I played it, I got a hold of the first KOTOR and played that because I was like, I like Mass Effect. BioWare might be awesome, so I should check out more of their games. And then, I fell into KOTOR and loved that, and I was like, and that was sort of the beginning of the BioWare can do no wrong phase with me, which they have not quite lived up to as of late. But
sad.
Yeah. Okay, so sticking with Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Let's maybe briefly, I don't know if anyone really thought through a headcanon for their Shepard, but since that's kind of a okay, cool. All right, well then let's talk about our Shepards. What are they like? What are our headcanons for them? If you want to describe what they look like too, that's cool. That's just so since you mentioned Liz, what is your headcanon for your Shepard?
This is going to be totally unsurprising, and that's also how I'm doing this playthrough, but She plays Renegade mostly. Her background is Earthborn and Ruthless. In my first playthrough, I named her Jane because I didn't really attach myself to her at first, or didn't intend to, and then it's like, and now I just call her Eva Shepard. My headcanon is that she grew up being Earthborn. She grew up in Vancouver, and which seemed to like connect her way more in Mass Effect 3 when you like basically take off from Vancouver in the beginning. Like she's a redhead, and obviously being a renegade, she's like kind of scary. But her teammates eventually learn that she's really not gonna like kick their ass or anything, and she'll like save their butts when she has to, or when she has to. Not sure now. She romanced Garrus to the surprise of nobody. That's pretty much it.
No, that's good. I don't really think I had that much worked out when I played my original. Well, no, wait a second. I take that back. I had headcanons about my original Alpha Shep, but I'm not playing that Shepard. I wanted to do a new playthrough with a different background character this time, just to sort of, again, kind of be a little fresh. My Alpha Shepard was a colonist soul survivor, so she had the absolute saddest background possible.
That's why putting that Alpha Shepard. I like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I played multiple playthroughs of Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, and it's just kind of like, she was the one that I usually... I experimented with other Shepards and doing different alignments, and I always kept coming back to my Alpha Shep. So she was super sad, and I always kind of headcanon that she gathered all of the Normandy crew, and Anderson was kind of like a surrogate dad to her because she lost her family, and then she lost her squad, and she basically lives a life of trying to find surrogate family members, and then losing them, and sort of becoming super determined not to let anything bad happen to anyone, which is how I sort of rationalized her being the most Paragon to ever Paragon. I'm talking. I'm not sure I ever made a renegade decision with her. Period. Outside of decisions that would just by default grant you renegade points. Because I was super goody two shoes with her, and I tried with this playthrough to have sort of a different background. This current Shepard, her name is Evelyn, Evie for short, and she's a spacer. What is she? Spacer, soul survivor. I still really like the soul survivor background for how it lets you interact with Toombs. In his side quest. So I wanted her to have the spacer background because I wanted her to have a mom in this playthrough. I feel like, I'm assuming Earthborn, you're also an orphan, so you don't have parents.
Yeah.
You obviously don't have a family as a colonist. I basically wanted a mom so that I could headcanon down the road that Garrus would meet Shepard's mom, and they would all be kind of like a happy family. I don't know. But I also kind of, she's still mainly Paragon, but I've tried to make at least a smattering of renegade decisions, and basically any renegade decision or any major decision where she is able to have snark, I've tried to pick that one as long as it doesn't super conflict with what I want to do with the mission. Just because, I kind of imagine her. She's got her duty being raised as a spacer, being raised as an Alliance brat, but she also kind of, I think, because she's been raised like that, she mouths off a little bit where she can get away with it, just because she's been living with her parents, sort of drilling it into her whole life, and she wants to serve, but she's also got a bit of a Joker streak in her. So I imagine she's super good friends with Joker and with some of the characters throughout the series that know how to have a good time. And that was a long-winded spiel to say,
dang.
Dang, yeah.
That really like tells your character though. Like, you definitely went into a lot of depth, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then as I was listening, I remember like some of the things about my character that I thought of along the way. Like when you brought up Anderson, I thought of how I imagined that Anderson basically plucked my Earthborn Shepard basically off the streets because she was, she's living the gang life, and Anderson's like, you're too young for this, you're definitely do some work in the general term military, and that's kind of how she got started and met Anderson basically. So.
Oh my gosh.
So it's kind of like a space dad.
I love that.
In a similar way.
He is so space dad.
Yeah, he really is.
Space Dad gave me a really swank apartment in Mass Effect 3. I'm just saying. Way better than the crap apartment you get with Pinnacle Station, which we will talk about later. But anyway, I digress. So, Greg and Nate, what about you guys?
Go ahead, Nate.
Okay. I don't have any kind of elaborate like stories like the two you do. But mine, I just made mine the standard because especially when I played back then, I wasn't like a big RPG guy, so I was just like, let's pick the default for everything. So I was the soldier, sole survivor, and just made all the Paragon decisions because I'm a good guy.
Fair enough.
So I had a pretty boring run. It's not like you two where you guys came up with like nice distinct personalities for your shepherds. I was just, played the standard way, I guess, is what you could describe it as.
I think that's kind of the beauty of how BioWare designed this whole thing with giving you the personal and the service backgrounds and whatnot, is that it gives you plenty of material to create that background if you want. And even within those backgrounds, you could have the same personal and service history and have different headcanons that would work with what the game tells you. But you also don't have to if you don't want to. The game gives you enough background just to say, that's my shepherd, and I'm sticking to it. So I can say I appreciate a game that lets you put in your own headcanons but doesn't force you to make everything up about them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice.
Like they even have like missions in one for whatever background you chose between Earthborn.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and that's a nice touch. And they didn't at the same time they didn't go all in on it, so that way it still left room for your own ideas and headcanons, which is pretty cool. But it gave you a little bit more to go on than just the beginning of the game when you chose the options.
Yeah, I have done multiple Mass Effect playthroughs, so I did do the Renegade path, and I actually made a neutral path where I just literally picked every single decision in the middle. And
I think everybody died in 3.
Yeah, a lot of people died in the You pick neutral path, people are gonna die. Just as a matter of fact. Like Rex died on Fire, so
I never thought about doing that, but that's really an interesting idea because I'm sure everyone looks at Paragon Renegade and if they've ever watched Star Wars, they're probably thinking, oh, it's light side versus dark side. Are you a Jedi? Are you a Sith Lord? Yeah. And it's interesting to think about doing a gray playthrough with we've seen in Star Wars canon, we've seen some characters that do they don't fall into either light or dark. They are in the gray.
Yeah.
So that is cool. I wouldn't have thought of doing that, but that was,
With my shepherd, I think my alpha shepherd now, since I'm going to take that term because I like it, I think I went Earthborn War Hero and Paragon for my very first playthrough that I went through all 3 trilogies with. And all 3 trilogies, yes. There's 9 games. For the entire trilogy.
Oh my god.
With my original Gregory shepherd. He was that route. This time around, I always have a hard time doing the bad stuff. It just goes so against my moral code. So I'm trying to go more Renegade this time around. And so far it's working out. But the Renegade notes really, really make you a jackass. It's really there's not a lot of gray area for them, which makes sense, I suppose. But it's just no, just be a terrible person. That's all you are. You're just an awful, horrible person.
Only the mission matters. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I went with a colonist sole survivor. So the minimal amount I built on that is just the idea that he's used to being alone and doing everything himself. But it's funny because because I made him look different from how my Gregory Shepherd was too, because Gregory Shepherd just modeled off of me, so he looked very similar to me. Whereas this one, every time I see him, I'm like, that is not an attractive dude. He just looks like an asshole. He's just he's got these shrewd little eyes and just a mean face. He's got a buzz cut. He just looks like the worst of the worst, sergeant major commander kind of guy that you just do not want to mess with. I gave him a scar up his face. So he's you do not mess around with my shepherd, apparently.
Yeah.
But even then, I still make the odd decision, and all of a sudden, my Paragon had jumped up higher than my Renegade somehow for a brief period until I murdered the Rachni, which I felt super bad about.
It's so bad.
Because even like I had the scientist Liara over there just being like, I don't know, don't do it, man. You probably shouldn't do it. Like, and I was like, I know, I'm listening to you, but this guy's a screw you. And yeah, so that's kind of the route I've been going, and I made him go into the infiltrator class. So again, trying to be the sole survivor, sole mission kind of person, get it done by himself, being a quiet sniper, sitting in the back, getting things done, set his troops ahead to kind of screen while he just picks things off.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I like it. And yeah, I'm with you. It was always hard when I eventually went around and did a Renegade playthrough, and I did it through all 3 games. I don't like it. Like, there's some really great, awesome snark lines that I love, and I will still take if I can. But yeah, Renegade Shepherd is I don't want to say it.
It's a chocobo sound effect.
What I mean.
That's what he is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess I forgot. You mentioned your character class. I did not be different in character class. I rolled a soldier, which is what I usually roll in Mass Effect 1, just because I like having proficiency in all of the guns, since I prefer assault rifles when I play. Really, I prefer them in all 3 games, so I really wanted a class that I could get proficiency in assault rifles. I wanted to try something different, but I never really kind of liked the tech or biotic skills in Mass Effect 1. They got better in 2 and 3.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely more fun being an engineer and Vanguard. Is that the one that was like the really up close and personal?
So much fun.
Yeah,
that's what I went with in Mass Effect 2 and 3, but in the first one I was engineer with my Alpha Shep.
Yeah,
I just like having shotguns.
Plus, you make the combat drone. You can name it.
Oh yeah,
Callie names hers.
Yes.
Yeah, I went Vanguard in all 3 because Vanguard kind of like sucks in Mass Effect 1, like you guys are saying, but it gets so much better in 2 and 3 because my Shepard is not a fan of guns. If she doesn't have to use them, she's not gonna. And Adam,
what are these primitive things?
What do you mean?
Strangely enough,
shoot from far away. I want to get up close and personal.
Strangely enough, I didn't like Vanguard until Mass Effect Andromeda, which I know we said we wouldn't talk about, but because Andromeda lets you experiment with whatever class you want, I started playing the Vanguard style there, and I really liked it there. So
the only redeemable quality for Andromeda 2.
Possibly, yeah. The combat is maybe, I don't know. I still have to go back and actually beat the game.
I haven't actually tried it yet, but we do not talk about Andromeda.
It's in my room somewhere.
I have to beat it still, but I'm glad to hear that Vanguard is like actually good there. I mean, I do like it in 2 and 3, but if it's even better than
it's fun. I'm a sniper Vanguard, so I can do charge, and I have a shotgun, but my other weapon is a sniper rifle, so I can charge in, shotgun, and then back away and snipe people. It's a lot of fun. I will say. I actually made a point of maxing out sniper rifle in this playthrough. I never used to bother because that first experience of trying to use a sniper rifle and dealing with the float that they introduced to basically, represent that your accuracy, that your skill with the gun sucks.
Yeah.
It turned me off so hard from, it's not like I'm an amazing sniper when I use sniper rifles in other shooters, but I don't have to fight against my aim nearly that much. Yeah. So I hated it, and I would used to just say, Garrus, you can do this. I'm going to use assault rifles. But I made the point of maxing out the sniper rifle tree and putting good mods for accuracy and things like that. And I still use the sniper rifles a lot, but I'm finding sniper rifle gunplay more enjoyable. And someone's going to say it's because I'm playing on PC, and yes, I'm sure that has something to do with it too. Because aiming in first person on PC, it's always easier with a mouse than it is with a controller.
I was curious if there is much of a difference between the two. I'm playing on Xbox 360 again.
Yeah, so same with me. For me, I cannot aim. Well, no, I can aim better with the mouse. The problem is I can't move because I
can aim with biotic charge. That's what matters. Mind you, that's not Mass Effect 1, so that's another podcast.
Yeah. I should play my PC shooters with a controller because I can't move because my WASD I just can never get used to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's been interesting. experience for me. Actually, I've been really grateful that I've been playing it because I think it's getting me more used to the whole basic setup of movement with a keyboard and mouse, since I'm very relatively new to the whole PC gaming thing, and usually the idea of playing an action-heavy game like this with keyboard and mouse would really turn me off, because it's like, how can I possibly react if I'm trying to fumble, trying to figure out which keys to press? And it's
for sure.
At first it was a little bit like that, like, oh crap, how do I crouch? No, how do I not crouch?
Yeah.
How do I do this? How to do that? And I've learned, and it's gotten me more comfortable with that style of control. And so maybe I'll actually be able to do that in other games.
Yeah, and again, this one isn't a completely like fluid scheme. It's not like you're trying to play Mass Effect 1 in like the Borderlands engine. It's not as fluid as that, and not as precise as that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste, and it's interesting going back to it after having played other things. And in a world where it existed in with games like Halo and stuff out, you can also kind of see some of that influence, and that's, I feel like, what they were trying to tap into by making it what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because didn't they just auto fire in Knights of the Old Republic, and it all just came down to RNG? Because I don't think you actually had any action seat for the people who use blasters. I think you just targeted something and they just started wailing on them.
God, it's been ages since I played KOTOR, so
I feel like that's.
I don't.
Yeah. Anyways, someone will.
KOTOR was it was more of like a Dragon Age kind of setup where you're not directly in control of actual individual actions. You just have an attack animation, and it's determined by your stats and RNG and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which BioWare, don't remake KOTOR and make it an FPS. Please don't do that.
I would be very
this is
sad.
not a suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Mass Effect.
Right.
Let's I guess we'll move on, since we talked a lot about Shepards and gameplay and stuff like that. So the alien races and the whole concept of galactic civilization in Mass Effect, I think, was another one of those things that really drew me personally into the game and the series, is getting to meet these cool aliens and learning a little bit about alien politics and how they're still kind of dicks. But, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna let that one slide because I don't know how else to say it. Well, I guess Caden would say jerks and saints just like us. But anyway, so what do we all think about, like, the new alien races that they introduced in this game, and how the galaxy is presented to us with those new races?
I think it's super interesting what they've done with. Again, it all goes into the details they put in and how each race was formed based on climate and all that sort of stuff. Just that extra research and what a planet could do to a person. That's one of the reasons why, for me, like, I really like the Alcor, just for how they're these big stumpy creatures because of the gravity on their planet and their speech patterns, and how they've had to adjust for galactic trade and interaction to avoid misunderstandings. I find that really neat, which is, I just like the work that they put into them for that aspect, for example.
Yeah. Just considering things like the gravity and, like things that are different on each planet that will obviously affect like growth and other things. I think that's pretty cool.
And I know everyone wanted to see Tali without her mask for so long, but like, what's going on under those Volus helmets? I want to know what's going on.
Photoshopped image of was it like a Miss Worlds contestant or something? A Miss Universe contestant? I think that's what
they grabbed it off the internet somewhere.
It was a stock image from like Getty Images or something.
Yeah, that
was so bad. I prefer not to remember that.
I wish they never revealed it. Just let people imagine whatever. So
I haven't actually gotten it. That's why I've chosen to have her around more, because this is inevitably, you've gateway drugged me with this one by bringing me onto this podcast. I'm going to go through the trilogy again, and I think I'm going to try and romance Tali once the option is there.
Tali is awesome.
I'll be doing it the same way as Greg.
Cute
I'm going
romance.
to do the challenge again.
Yeah.
But no, I was literally thinking the same thing about the Volus. Is like, since they have to wear those suits because the pressure is different on their planet versus everywhere else, is what I remember. So, what do Volus look like under those pressure suits? And maybe we don't want to know. Maybe they are horrifying looking and their suits are an improvement. I don't know.
Well, the
It looks like
Vorcha
they'd
have
be like
a
some
pretty
kind of
high bar for that.
Yeah. It looks like these kind
Yeah,
of mouse pieces,
Vorcha.
Yeah.
Vorcha should wear suits.
And I enjoyed that everything
They didn't
has to
appear in
have
the
a
second
thing.
game.
Sorry, what was that, Nathan?
Oh, sorry, the Vorcha don't appear until Mass Effect 2.
No,
Yeah,
and that's true.
Yeah.
But they
And the
ugly.
veterans. Oh no, the veterans appeared in the DLC. That's right. Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
mentioned
Yeah,
in...
Bring on the Sky.
They're at least mentioned, I think, in this
Yeah,
one.
they mentioned.
So,
Yeah.
And you get to see their race index. At least you get to see what their faces look like, but you don't get to hear them or anything like that.
I'll always think of the Mass Effect 3 DLC. I can't remember which one it was. It was like winner, winner, chicken dinner, and just hearing them say that in that voice is the most hilarious thing ever.
That's amazing.
Wait, that was the actual thing.
I
Yeah,
don't think I forgot that one.
is that or in the multiplayer? I can't remember.
Oh, it probably was the multiplayer. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Because they're
Oh,
that
yeah.
competitive edge. That'd be
Oh,
funny.
That makes sense.
They were so much fun in multiplayer, but I digress. Aliens.
Yeah, the other...
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sure. I was going to say the other interesting thing that I was just thinking about earlier is like the racism aspect that they kind of bring into this whole thing. And you want to think that, yeah, maybe things will be great, like Star Trek makes it, and everyone kind of gets along more often than not. I mean, obviously there's some stuff, and there's a little bit of a xenophobic thing that comes in now and again, but it's not as prevalent as it seems like it was in the history of the Mass Effect universe and how everyone was pretty cloistered and there's a lot of like latent racism. And it's interesting how it's probably what would happen if we were to meet aliens in our
Oh, yeah,
culture.
for sure.
We would
Oh,
give
for
us a
sure.
common thing to be racist against, and we'd probably forget all the racism that's already on Earth for the most part, because we'd be like, well, this is a new thing to hate. So it's interesting
exactly.
Yeah.
that kind of what that brings into it, and how there's a lot of discussion around aliens and being on the ship, like with C.O. Presley, or
Oh,
Extra
yeah.
percent.
that sort of discussion with him. And your Shepherd can lean into that too if you want, and even Ashley kind of touches on it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But it's
Did anyone actually choose to like agree with Ashley about not trusting aliens? Since we
I may have touched on it a bit just because I think I'm trying to romance her in this one, just because I think I let her die in my first playthrough, so I'm curious what she brings to it if I let her live in this one. But I can't remember. I don't think totally. Sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
As a Paragon, I always have to disagree with her.
Yeah, I think I
I-
still disagreed even as a renegade.
I can never. I mean, like I can understand where she's coming from, but I can never like fully support, that the mindset of that because
And I feel like there was an option to do that where you kind of be like, I get you, but it's a little hard line. I feel like I think I went that path with it of kind of understanding but not condoning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, speaking of racism, it's interesting that the game doesn't paint Galactic Society as this perfect utopia of equality. Like going out to the stars and discovering all this hyper advanced technology and meeting other alien races did not magically make everyone super friends. And you see that it's not just how the council and council races refer to humanity, but you also see it mentioned when you're talking to what's his face, the Volus ambassador.
Yeah.
And he's complaining about how the council overlook him and things like that. And you see the Hanar
The priest guy, yeah.
The preacher.
The preacher.
yeah. Who I feel like is also getting kind of run down by policy, but also because he wants to preach about something that is culturally significant to him, and people don't want to hear that. So
Yeah,
I thought that was. I mean, yeah, they could have made it into this perfect thing, but they did a good job, I think, of showing that going out to the stars and getting getting spaceships and colonizing new worlds and meeting new races, new aliens, new life does not immediately fix all of these issues that are inherent to, I guess, probably all civilized sentient life. And
Because ultimately you want to protect yourself and look out for your own. It's just ingrained in you. So obviously that stuff's going to come up and make you leery of everything that's not you.
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, they do a good job too of creating at least, not to excuse that kind of behavior, but giving some reasons why different races might think differently, like Asari being long-lived. A lot of them, especially like Liara included, tend to sort of have a more, well, we are very knowledgeable and we know what's best, that kind of thing. You guys, you're short-lived, you're fast, you come in brashly and do all this stuff without necessarily taking time to understand.
They're space elves.
Yeah, exactly what I was about to say. Was like, they basically remind me of elves, but there's no male ones.
Whereas, and the Krogans are just
Look at the Krogans
real rough and tumble.
Yeah.
And
Krogans are a good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have much to live for. I forgot about that whole conversation chain with Rex, where he just kind of lays it on you. It's like, what's the point for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I found it interesting that one of the first conversations you have with Rex is no matter what option you choose, Shepard comes off looking like an idiot and an insensitive prick. Because no matter what you choose, you basically just say the genophage wasn't that serious, and we kind of experienced the same thing when the Turians tried to wipe us out, and it's not at all the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting that they made Shepard kind of be a bit of a racist there, or be at least a little ignorant.
I feel like that was intentional because that was like pretty early, and it's like, well, this is how it's going to be. You're just not going to know everything, and you're going to.
And it's a comment on the self-importance that we can have too, and how we always want to make things about us. It's really interesting, that whole point that you're going to step on toes and say the wrong thing, and that's just how it is.
Sometimes, you're not going to be able to make perfect decisions like anywhere for the whole series. So live with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. And I mean, it's interesting how they have galactic civilization built up with this whole concept of you basically have to prove yourself to galactic society in order to get any say in galactic politics, and you had to be able to, provide resources and defend and all this stuff, and the politics involved in deciding who gets to join the council and have a say. And I mean, it's inevitable that one of those plot points is humanity getting a seat on the council because you play as a human character, and that's the whole basic setup of becoming a Spectre makes that sort of that push inevitable. But it's still kind of an interesting concept to have, to say that you only get to be on this board, this governing board, once you've made a difference or once you can make a difference. It's not everyone automatically gets a say.
Yeah, you got to be significantly contributing, and it's interesting. And it's definitely humanity's groundbreaking ceremony, which it's very humbling at first in this power fantasy kind of world of like, I'm the Spectre, I'm humanity's chosen hero, and no one likes us that much yet. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, I like that they did that.
Absolutely. It builds character.
Yeah, that induction ceremony is still I think one of those standout scenes for a lot of people. Yeah. I know, Nathan, you love it, don't you?
I do love it. Just the music that plays in the background while the council outlines your duties as a Spectre. It's just great. I love it. Actually, I live for Mass Effect speeches just in general.
Me too.
It felt super epic.
It's got some great writing.
That moment, yeah.
Although I forgot about the thing until after you words and you talk with Anderson, you're like, oh, sorry. Maybe you shouldn't have been there for that. I'm so sorry. You got passed over. My bad. I didn't know.
Awkward.
Actually, I never read the book that was about that whole thing.
There was a book?
They did it.
Yeah, they made a book on it. The mission
was mostly Anderson chasing Saren, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I never read it. I think I tried reading maybe I tried reading it, and sorry, I didn't like the writing very much. Sorry. I think I forget if it was written by. Well, if it was written by.
What's
his face? Yeah, I forget if he was the one that wrote it, and if he was, I'm sorry.
I don't know where my copy is, or I would tell you. I actually didn't mind it.
It wasn't that it was badly written. I think it was that it's the kind of it felt like it works a lot better if it was, a screenplay or something. I remember finding it to be kind of dry. And it gets the description across and it tells you dialogue, but it didn't feel like it was as descriptive as I maybe wanted it to be. And maybe that's more on me than the author. So
Drew
that's why I'm like.
Honestly, I can find all my Mass Effect books except for that one, which is baffling to me. But he wrote like all the other ones. I found it similar to you, Caitlin. I found it not very descriptive, but I did like that it gave us like some sort of background into like Anderson, who's obviously very important to the series, and Saren, who we're chasing through all of Mass Effect 1. So that was kind of nice to have, even though it's not exactly an award-winning book.
Yeah, definitely.
We didn't hear from you two, Caitlin and Nathan, kind of like what races spoke to you in this whole galactic scheme. We just kind of we went down a really intensive rabbit hole, which was great.
Well, I'll let Nathan go first because I'm not sure I even have to say anything if you don't know.
Oh, right.
Come on. I you can't see it. I'm not actually wearing it, but if I could show you, I would literally be wearing a t-shirt that says Turians.
Turians are probably my favorite race. Actually, Turians and Krogans probably like between those two. It's a bit of a hard choice. I like them both.
What about them?
Oh, just the way, especially for the Krogan. The Krogan has such a deep. There's a deep connection, especially what you find out about the Krogan race through Rex and Grunt, and the way you help out the Krogan throughout the entire trilogy. Is just that this makes for like a really like interesting race of characters. The Turians are just cool. I just like just be the military arm of the council. Just have the big important role, and not to mention Garrus is one of the best party members ever in an RPG, in my opinion.
He is.
It's pretty neat. I find they weird me out.
My boy Nathan, he's laying it down. He's telling truths.
I really like them, but I always find they weird me out when I look at them from the waist down. Because they
do have.
Everyone complains about that thigh gap. Have you seen?
Well, also when you see them walking, like when you run around the Presidium and you see an occasional Turian walking, and you're just like, how does that even work? That looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But it probably is completely normal, obviously, for them. They have different physiology, which is fun. Like they definitely have. They've explored with a lot of different. It's not all Star Trek bipedal races. They really went out there more in like the Star Wars vein of trying to find a few things, and it's pretty light in the first one, but they definitely expand as they go. But I can understand how mechanically a lot of the stuff you have to interact with needs to be pretty bipedal, because it just sounds like a nightmare for them to try and animate.
Yeah. No, I think their awkward movement is more on an animation thing and less about, because the thing is, I don't feel like they animate walk-wise in a way that makes sense considering their anatomy. It looks like they made them look like they have different, that their legs are different, but then they had them walking as if they were normal, like human style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is probably why it looks so awkward, because it's like, wait a second, shouldn't your legs be moving differently?
And it's probably symptomatic of the exploratory territory of motion capture, and they probably modeled it off of a motion capture walk cycle and tried to model it onto that. But I don't know the intricacies of it. But I know they were using motion capture already at this point, so I'm sure some of that is affected. It's a good point that it's kind of tried to put it onto a human physiology, this weird non-human physiology.
Yeah. How do you even you can't motion capture for true anyway to represent a different gait than what is capable by a human being, unless you like.
It's a fun thought.
Motion capture animals. I don't know. Is that a thing that people do?
Or people who have, or you can do people who have specific like walk disabilities could possibly feed into that, but that's a very specific, difficult thing to try and figure out and source in a respectful, caretaking way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just trying to imagine putting those motion capture balls on a pet, like. Imagine trying to put that on a cat. It's
definitely easier now from what I just recently experienced with my motion capture experience there, but it still would be, we're trying, I'm sure, and I don't envy anyone who wants to figure that out. I know they've done it with horses, but horses are easier to train.
Mm-hmm.
Cats, if they don't like what you're doing, you're getting scratched.
Right? And they'll just pull them all off and whatever. How about them Quarians? I like the Quarians. I think they're neat with their whole history and lineage and oops, we messed up and we're paying the price with our pilgrimage kind of. I wish we always. I may have missed it in any sort of DLC that ever came out. Do you ever get to go to the flotilla? I forget.
You do.
Yes.
Mass Effect 2 and 3, you go to the flotilla.
Okay. I could vaguely remember. It's surprising me as I've been going through this how little of it I actually do remember, even though I can remember a lot of the big moments.
They're just spaceships, so it's not like anything particularly special.
Yeah, it's pretty
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
That
it's
was
coming
one of
back.
my favorite missions, though, in Mass Effect 2 was Tali's loyalty mission. Which,
Yeah, Tali's trial was one of, it was really intense. I like that mission.
Oh, okay, I think I'm remembering this now, and that's where she takes on her new name and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Talizora Voss Normandy.
Yeah.
Sticks in my brain.
She's my girl now, guys. My Alpha Shep always, again, part of the whole finding surrogate family members was she always had a very special relationship with Ashley and Tali because I had canoned her as having sisters on Mindwar, and so I always kind of thought of her as seeing elements of her sisters in Ashley and Tali, which is probably just a way of excusing that I liked Ashley and Tali more than Liara.
Yeah, I think I liked everybody more than Liara.
That's so weird. I went for Liara.
That's my favorite.
Alpha Shep went for Liara,
yeah. I can't. No. The thing is, it's weird.
Liara's kind of
She's
weird
too
case
clingy.
anyway, just because she's so different in Mass Effect 1 compared to 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
for the
let's
most part, yeah. Like in 1, she's like very clingy, and obviously so to an extent. But even in 3, she like comes back to my character and is like, "Well, do you have feelings for me?" And I'm like, "No, I still don't have feelings for you. You asked me Mass Effect 1, and you kind of hinted at it in 2, and it's Mass Effect 3, and I still don't have feelings for you. Sorry."
I have a Turian boyfriend, Liara. Jeez.
Exactly. And then I went on my date with Garrus, and it was all good.
Oh god, that date. Yeah. Okay. we're getting away. Oh god, you make me want to talk about that date, but we should probably stick to the first Mass Effect.
Fair enough.
So the next thing on our list was the morality system, which we already kind of talked about where our shepherds fall and stuff like that. So I don't know if we have anything else to say about that because we kind of went over it. But
did it blow your mind
just...
when you first experienced it?
I don't know if it blew my mind.
I thought it was fun that I could be
kind of
mean
cool.
and still win. That part blew my mind, that I could be like a total jerk and basically still save everybody. I was like, all right, cool.
You actually do that. Renegade, you actually can save a lot of people.
Yeah, if you go like, and in Mass Effect 2, there's a couple of morality checks. There's one where you have to really have a high Paragon check, and another one where you have to have a really high Renegade check. And I was just like really happy, like my second playthrough of Mass Effect 2, that I was able to pass the high Renegade check with the other one. But that's getting off top of Mass Effect 1. But I don't like that it's binary. I think BioWare did it like differently in their other games where it's slightly less binary and there's more, more of a compass than left or right.
Yeah. Because I remember playing Dragon Age, I was just like, the morality system is different in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more like wiggle room, I guess. And I didn't really get that far in Dragon Age, so I didn't like actually get to experience too much of it. I think Witcher kind of does that too. And I kind of wish, I don't know what Andromeda did either, because I also didn't get far in that.
Andromeda didn't do it. Didn't have any morality system at all.
Because I've always wanted to see a Mass Effect that does a morality system that isn't just binary. To see, like, because like we were talking about earlier, like the gray area, just everybody dies. It's like, that's not realistic. That's not entirely realistic, at least I don't think. But
And Knights of the Old Republic, I think, was pretty binary too, which again I feel like is the stronger model for what they did, and Dragon Age is more the departure.
Yeah.
But that's why I was asking, because like for myself, having done Knights of the Republic, it just felt familiar. Whereas, but I still found Knights of the Republic, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is really neat. And what I do matters, and it builds my character in different ways. Oh my gosh. And in that one too, you especially see the representation of your good or bad choices in how your character changes physically.
I think I thought it was a cool mechanic. But I don't know, like the downside is, it's binary, but the downside is that if you largely stick to one alignment, then you feel like you miss out on options for the other alignment.
Yeah.
Your fear of missing out.
Like,
this means you have to play again.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Like I remember, like we brought up Mass Effect 2 has some really awesome snarky renegade lines. One of those is when you're doing Thane's loyalty mission and you have to get the vagrant or whatever he is out of the attic space, or you're tailing on the rafters, and there's this guy you run into, and you can tell him renegade style, "There's a bomb! Get out quick! It's gonna blow!"
Yep.
And you have to have fairly high renegade for that, and I love that, and I want to do that, but I don't usually like playing renegade enough to have that total, and it kind of sucks that you get locked out of some of the fun decisions or choices of dialogue because of that. So I mean that's always kind of annoying. And like Mass Effect 1, you actually had morality missions, but once you reach 75% of either. And you can actually game it. You can do enough if you make the right choices to build up enough Paragon and Renegade to do both. But I never... It's hard, and it requires super metagaming, which I never like to do, because then I feel like I'm not actually playing a role-playing game. I'm just like ticking off boxes to make sure I have the right number of points.
Yeah, you're just doing a playthrough, follow out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I had to say, the one time I did the Renegade mission that's morality-based in Mass Effect 1, I was kind of like, it has like one really good line, and I love that line, and I can't remember what it is now, but
I can't remember either, because I haven't gotten to it yet.
I'm hoping to figure it out.
Playthrough. Yeah.
But then the rest of it's just like, so I don't know. But I think they rightly deserve the sort of the criticism for making it binary. I know it's a cool concept.
Right.
I like the concept, but it definitely deserves that a little bit of flack for how binary it was. And they tried to react to that with later games in the series. I forget how it worked. They changed how it worked in Mass Effect 3.
Well, the two gave you like interrupts, so you can choose to do Renegade interrupt even for your Paragon. You do stuff like that.
Yeah, I like those. I think Mass Effect 2 is my favorite as far as morality goes. I mean, they added the interrupts. Some of the Renegade stuff is more fun and not just like jerkish. Yeah. And just having like stuff like the morality checks was kind of cool, even though it sucks that it's binary and going down the middle kills people. Just having stuff like the morality checks, like I was talking about before, was pretty neat. It's like, are you badass enough to, break up this squad mate fight kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's an interesting commentary.
It's also...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It also, like, especially with Mass Effect 1, because of the way the leveling up worked, you had to kind of plan for when you wanted to dedicate points to Charm and Renegade, because it didn't automatically... You get a certain amount of free points in those ranks based on your decisions, but you still have to invest points in order to have enough to do some of the larger persuasion or intimidation options.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you had to sacrifice powering up your character in combat in order to do that, and that's always kind of tricky. Like I know now, kind of, for the most part, where I need to have certain thresholds of Paragon or Renegade points in order to do, like, the decisions I want. But, like, when I would be first exploring the game, I don't know that I would know, or that I did know when was the right time to say, oh, I'm going to put some points into Charm, or stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because you have so many more points to work with in Mass Effect compared to Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, it looks a little intimidating to say, well, I'm going to sacrifice, putting points into my weapons or my biotic skills or my class specialist, which gets me more health and better regeneration depending on your class, than to say put it purely into a social skill, which I don't know. I think I might like how they did it in Mass Effect 2 and onwards better, where your points obviously increased by your choices, but you also get a sort of a flat boost based on
your background,
your class. Yeah, your background. Your when you level up your class or whatever, it gets you that boost, but it also gets you, benefits in
extra points,
combat, stuff like that.
Yeah, I
so
like
it
that
felt
better.
more like I'm not sacrificing my combat prowess to give myself a boost in Paragon or Renegade points.
Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, for me, it just like kind of worked out where I wanted my shepherd to kind of have like this kind of grimy, like had it hard background, and kind of worked out where both my choices just put her into like the renegade points category. And I was like, when my first, I was like you, Caitlin, my first Mass Effect playthrough, I just didn't know when to put points in charm and intimidation, but knowing that I was already clearly building a renegade character, I just occasionally threw a few into intimidation, and I think I didn't really do much into charm at all. But I think that was interesting too, that you could just like manually do that. But I like it better that you can get it through conversation choices.
Yeah, in some ways that almost feels like
More natural.
the more natural way to do it, instead of artificially boosting it like that.
Exactly.
Which works because it's a role-playing game, and you should be getting those points largely from
your actions,
from your actions,
as opposed to gaming the
But
system.
I mean, this was the first game in the trilogy, and it was 2007, right? That
Yeah.
they released it.
Yeah.
So
They had a lot of ambitions.
Oh yeah.
It was a very ambitious game. Yeah.
So for being the first game and being very ambitious for what it is, I thought it was really cool. I was happy to see that they had refined it throughout the trilogy, and if they choose to do something similar like that, I kind of feel like going forward, if they go back to any sort of morality system like that, they're going to make it more organic and gray and work natural with the conversation system, instead of making it more of an artificial, here's your rank in Paragon or charm or points or whatever.
Yeah, I think they already did that with Andromeda, so I think that's what because Andromeda is more of a gray area. They didn't have the morality system, so in that way it's already been better.
Did you find yourselves affected by having party members there for things? Because we were bringing up Dragon Age, and in Dragon Age, certain decisions actually affect what your party members think of you, whereas I don't think in Mass Effect it actually matters. And
No, Mass Effect doesn't matter.
Yeah.
it makes me forget that I could be a terrible person,
Except
but
for
everyone will
Garrus.
still like me.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, even though sometimes they'll like comment in game, it doesn't affect like the outcome of say the suicide mission or anything like that. So it does. For in that aspect, I knew that was a thing in Dragon Age, but in that aspect, it felt less natural to me. Like, this person should hate me for that thing I said back on the ship, but they don't. So okay.
Yeah. Like when they are just like, "Oh, you shouldn't kill the Rachni." I was like, "I'm gonna kill the Rachni," and she just was like, "Okay."
And then after,
Yeah,
after that, she just wants to sleep with you. So
If you go that route, it's interesting, and it catches me off guard.
yeah, exactly. Me too.
I was also
The thing about that is it's really fake. It's artificial when you realize that they have it prepared so that usually you have one squad member giving you the do the thing and one squad member giving you the don't do the thing option. They design it so that no matter what combination of party members you have, one person is always advocating to kill the Rachni Queen, and one person's always advocating to not, or to leave it to the council or something like that. And then, so you could literally have the same character who says two opposite things just depending on who you're paired with in your party. And it makes you realize that's kind of fake. So
it's less on their moral stance and more just they're there.
Yeah. And then no one cares. Like you said, when you go back to Normandy, no one cares. The only person that you can influence at all really is Garrus, and Mass Effect 2 by and large ignores that. So it ends up feeling a little pointless.
Yeah.
Cheapens it a bit.
Yeah, I feel like Garrus is the one you could change throughout the series, but even then when the next game came along, he was still the same.
Yeah.
As he was in the previous game, which is weird. So
it's kind of weird because I remember I always paragoned him. I always made him, stop and think. And while I love his character arc in Mass Effect 2, it always felt weird to me because that felt like something a renegade Garrus would do. If I had pushed him to be renegade, in which in the end he wants to leave CSEC and reapply for Spectre training, that's what I kind of would have expected him to do, is to go off on his own and start doing things on his own. And, I think the motivation is different depending on whether you paragon or renegade him, but ultimately it does end up feeling like Yeah, it's the same. So, but again, like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I guess it's a question of what were their ambitions and their intentions with regards to characters? Did they maybe they didn't have the means, or they didn't really want to go at that far and do more of a Dragon Age kind of thing where characters really dislike you or really like you based on what you do. So
they were clearly trying to differentiate the two series, and this one definitely kept just kind of building on the groundwork they had already laid. But I guess as we've discovered in this conversation, there's a definite feel that has changed between the two conversation choice, morality choice systems in each game. And I guess that goes into the characters as well. They didn't just want to have, this is Space Dragon Age, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you can see how they... I mean, in some cases, it's just an outright change, but you can see how they kind of evolved the concept of the gameplay and the storytelling and the character arcs from game to game to game. I mean, Mass Effect 2, it feels much more like the characters actually have stories that you are going through with them.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of where in Mass Effect 1, they're by and large just telling you stories of their past. And which, I mean...
It's exposition.
That also makes sense.
Yeah, it helps because there was a recruitment and a loyalty mission for each of them, which was nice. Because you got to, like, experience their story, not just, like, hear it while on the ship.
Yeah, and the first one's definitely more Shepard's story and humanity's story. And then it kind of builds from there.
Yeah.
I did love a lot of things about Mass Effect 1, though. Like, the planet... I know we probably want to talk about this later, but the planet exploration and, like, a lot of the other things, like Mass Effect 2 definitely streamlined the combat system, for example, and the points. And I kind of missed having a lot of points in Mass Effect 1 to play around with. But, oh my god, that inventory system. Never
What
again.
levels are everybody at right now, anyways?
Let's talk about that inventory system. Let's see. Level, I'm at... Oh gosh, I don't remember.
I don't remember either. It's not very high, though.
I just beat Novaria today. I'm at 35.
I think I'm at maybe 40 something.
I ended at 51 today.
I want to say still 20s, but that sounds wrong.
Yeah, okay, so there are things that we all love about Mass Effect and Mass Effect 1, and there are things that we all hate, and I'm pretty sure everyone on the face of the planet who's ever played this game has a massive hate boner for the inventory system because
it's so bad.
Gosh, it's so bad.
It takes you like 15 minutes just to clear out your inventory.
Yeah. And you have to because you have a 150
limit.
Which I just discovered this playthrough. I never knew that was a thing.
It boggles the mind.
And like
150 for everything in your inventory.
For everything, including mods. Like, what?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to like omnigel things as well. I mean, it's not too bad in the standard like the equipment stuff, but when you go into trying to omnigel your mods and you go down to the bottom of your list to get rid of your tier 3 one, and it bumps you back to the top of like your tier 7, you're like, I have to scroll through all of that again just to omnigel something? No.
Yeah.
And you can't arrange things, so you can't have you might have, random Inferno ammo, rank 7 here, and then it pops up again down later in the list, and you're like,
it just automatically.
I only need to keep like 2 of these.
In KOTOR, you could sort it all. You could sort it all in KOTOR. Why did they lose that?
It boggles the mind, and it's I don't think it's any better or worse on PC. I have the same hatred for it
still
on PC as I did.
Still painful.
Yeah,
still clunky.
it sounds rough.
Awful. I like that there was an inventory system because you kind of don't have that in 2 and I don't think 3.
Yeah,
but it's horrible. It's clunky.
It's just annoying. Yeah, I think about Vermeer. I just stopped opening crates because I don't want to deal with the inventory system anymore. I don't want to get the inventory. Just leave it alone.
I was still a loot hoarder, for lack of a better term, because I wanted that achievement for making whatever number of credits it was, and I made it in my first playthrough ever.
Oh yeah, I didn't know
so
the
much
one.
Stuff.
I might have got that one already. I just want to save up and get my big broken weapons. I want that Spectre sniper.
Spectre weapons are so overpowered.
Yeah,
I was
just talking about the shotgun. I think before we started the podcast.
Yep.
Oh, I mentioned earlier, something like that. Yeah, overpowered thing. So good.
And I don't think I had anyone who's really good at electronics, which is what you need for the breaking into things to make it easier, or decryption. So I don't think I just broke into a lot of things very easily. So this time I find I'm like getting into everything so easy. So I'm just collecting hordes and scads of things where I finally got to the point I was like, hey, just so you know, master, your inventory is getting full. Was coming up every single time and you hit like 145 kind of items. And I was like, I know. Thank you. Thank you for alerting me to this. Every single time. So finally I found that like I was at Novaria where it happened and I was just down in the depths and I was like, oh, thank goodness, a shopkeeper. Because I just didn't want everything to turn into like 4 Omnigel when I know I can get like 10,000 credits for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's good that you can convert stuff into Omnigel, because imagine if you had to sell things to get rid of your inventory space and you're in the middle of a planet. Like, that would be so awful. But Omnigel is by and large useless outside of a few things. I mean, I end up having a huge stockpile of it that I never use. Because
I hit max by Ilos.
Oh God, yeah. Because okay, we use it to repair the not the shields, but the body of the Mako.
Yeah,
which
rarely hurts.
For the most part, usually doesn't get damaged unless you lose all your shields to begin with. And frankly, I'd rather repair the shields.
You get hit by a thresher mod. That's the only way to lose it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's usually when I repaired it.
Get a little too close. Oops.
Yeah. And then you also use it if you fail on decryption or whatnot, which does happen.
Yeah.
It's happened to me on both console and PC, but it's not like either version of those minigames is super hard, so you still don't end up using a lot of it. So it's just kind of like, it would have been nice if maybe you could, if in converting it, you could also maybe convert it into Metagel, and maybe like having a huge supply would lower your first aid cooldown or something like that, so you could heal your party, because party members die so often in Mass Effect 1 because they're stupid, and you tell them to go to this place where there's cover and they just run and they stand in front of it like idiots.
Exactly.
Hide, please hide. Although I'm playing on I think the easy setting just because I wanted to get through this playthrough, and I find it's pretty cakewalky. So
I'm sure.
I didn't want to challenge myself too heavily. I think I played it on the hardest difficulty my first time through, but this one I was just like, I know my time is short, so I'm just gonna. It's really cakewalky. It's kind of shocking how quickly you can get through it. So I find you rack up that stuff a lot easier because you're just not using it as much.
Yeah,
so,
I don't have.
But I want to know what that process.
Why would I bother doing that? Yeah.
You're just in the middle of the thing, and you're just like, well, let's just rip out these 17 assault rifles. Like, how do you convert? Is there a button that you could accidentally hit mid-combat and it just turns into gel in your hands? You're like, gosh!
It just
you can't reconstitute
a ball of Omnigel or something.
Yeah, and it's not like Monster Hunter where you bust out your little grill and start making meat and it shows you the process. It just happens.
And I don't know about you guys. I bought the licenses for my quartermaster. I bought Metagel and grenade upgrades. Yeah. I almost never bought guns or equipment outside of the Spectre gear from the requisitions officer.
Find so much stuff.
Because you find so much stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I ever bought unless it was Spectre gear either. Just because, you're looting everything. You're getting stuff all the time.
I think I got the odd bit of armor, and that was about it. When I was just like, this armor's pretty lousy. And also trying to find armor for Tali. Hello.
It's very hard. I legit did not get new equipment for her until I did bring down the sky, and I specifically asked Simon to give me Quarian armor because I knew it would be Colossus, and I did not have. She was still wearing her basic crappy stuff, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to actually find actual Quarian armor for her that's an improvement or that I like. So give it to me. Again, I'm sure the reasoning for that was, well, there aren't a lot of Quarians outside of the flotilla.
That's fair.
Why should there be a lot of armor for them?
That's a very fair point.
Yeah.
But it still sucks. Especially because I really like Tali's her appearance and the concept of her sort of, she can't, you don't see her face, you can't, she can't expose her body, so you can't really do a whole lot of flair there. So she, I kind of always headcanon the idea of they're not scars, but the cowls that they have covering their heads, that they would, maybe they'd have those be bright, different colored designs to sort of express themselves because they can't style their hair differently.
Oh, that makes
and
sense.
they have to wear an environmental suit, so it limits what they can do in terms of fashion. So, like, I don't know.
I guess it's rather similar to like Middle Eastern cultures and such too.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
There's less fashion expression for more of the fundamentalists.
I feel like, and I mean, I hope this is a fair assumption that might have been kind of at least some inspiration for what they were going for with the look of Quarians and having a Quarian, squad member was to have that sort of that feel to it, which I think is cool. I like, the idea of expressing different cultures and, fashion in space and seeing how that might, play off in a galactic society, even if it's in a game that's made by humans on the planet Earth.
Yeah, and especially when you see so little of the diversity in human culture, because there's so much focus on the culture of the other races and the diversity of the galaxy at large, that humanity's diversity is completely non-present.
Yeah, the only thing is like different like human backgrounds, but that's about it. They don't really talk about like they don't mention if there's any like real countries. Actually, I think they mentioned in the Codex if there's like countries back on Earth, like if it's still like segregated into countries. But for the most part, we're just one race in this one.
Yeah. That's pretty much.
And it's just, have we gotten to that happy, fun place where we all finally get along, or, because there's that common, like, oh, now there's space, so we have other things to focus on, and aside from our petty differences, like there's a question there. But yeah.
I'd like to believe that would happen for us, but I don't know.
We shall see, but we've definitely improved in a lot of ways. That's for sure. As much as everything seems lousy, we've gotten to a pretty great place in terms of things overall, but we got a lot of work to go before we're at Mass Effect and or Star Trek happy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
so we've commiserated about the horrible inventory system and the shopping system and all that crap. So let's talk a little bit about the plot worlds that we explored. The stopping point for this episode for our purposes was to do the 3 post-Citadel worlds, that is Therum, Pharos, and Noveria. And we just chose that because, we wanted to have some sort of midway point, but I didn't want to, mandate that everyone do the planets in a particular order. Although I forgot about Virmire being able to do that before Therum and making Liara totally nuts. So I ultimately kind of did do that, I guess. But anyway.
I would say Virmire is a late world, so I usually don't touch it until all my missions are done.
Yeah, I usually don't. I've never finished it before the other 3.
Yeah, I always do it after the first 3.
I can't remember.
Okay, so I guess we can just sort of do this a bit broader. Out of those 3 plot worlds, was there one that you really liked or one you really didn't like? And what kind of stood out about one you liked or didn't like for you?
I think you're not really supposed to like Noveria, but for one, it reminds me of Canada because there's lots of snow.
And you get a great line from Tally about that too.
Yeah.
You're right. And Tally gets that whole thing that winter quickly, you gets old fast or whatever it is that she says when you talk to her, which I love.
It does. Welcome to Canada.
Garrus doesn't like the cold. Turians don't like the cold.
I like that.
Sorry.
I like that the planet, when you get to the actual civilization part of it, they don't kiss your ass or whatever. They're just yeah, give us your guns, and you're no. But. And it's just it had really interesting politics because it's I feel it's a lot of they don't bend down and kiss your feet, but at the same time there's all these weird and interesting politics where they're also know your influence and so trying to use you to help undermine all these other groups.
It's so bureaucratic.
Yeah, it's very bureaucratic.
Yeah. It's so stentorian in its design, which speaks to that.
I just found it very interesting how everyone's just the games they play and that kind of thing. Mostly politically, of course, but
yeah. I'm a person who kind of likes politics, so that's why Noveria was my favorite. Just getting into all the different kind of the factions, to take down the corrupt administrator. And
Annaleus. Yeah.
Then once you get to peak 15, that's also one of my favorite parts too. Is discovering the Rachni are crazy, and you take down the Venezia. Probably one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah, I love that part.
I don't know.
That's the main reason I love Novaria was the whole politics thing for me.
It's got some neat stuff for that, but the part of Novaria that I disliked was getting to peak 15 and having to go through so many corridors and elevators once you were there. It's just so much waiting around for things. I found that really rough.
Yeah.
That's another thing we can talk about is how the elevators suck in this game. All of them.
Oh my God.
All of them.
At least the only good thing I'll say about the elevators is that while they do the elevators, they do like announcements or news reports while you're in the elevator. So that's nice.
In the Citadel,
they don't do that.
In the Citadel one, it does that, and it triggers potential quest lines from side quests, which I think is interesting.
It does. Which is cool.
Oh, but okay. So here's what annoys me. The elevator on the Normandy, it's slow on the consoles, but it's pretty freaking fast on PC. But the other elevators on PC are still slow as molasses, and I'm like, what? I mean, I know larger areas, I'm sure, to load, but all the same, like the elevators are everywhere but the Normandy are as slow on PC as they are on console, and I'm like,
that's weird.
All of my other loadings are actually significantly faster. What's going on here? I love hearing the news about the Krogan who sued the the Solarian scientists who were going to try and cure genophage and didn't produce any viable results, and hearing about Elcor Hamlet, which
I'm still waiting for.
I want to see that so bad.
14 hours.
It might put me to sleep, but
I still want it. I don't care.
Yeah. I agree. The elevators in Peak 15 are awful, but I think Novaria is also my favorite. I like that it felt to me like it was a larger plot world than, I mean, obviously Therum is the shortest, but it felt bigger in scale than even Pharos. Because you get to explore a town first, basically, and you get to meet a lot of characters and have side quests that have nothing to do with the main purpose of your being there. Whereas Pharos was much more like, well, we're under attack, so help us do these things, and blah blah blah, help us save the colony, and that felt much more connected to the main story. And also, since they could do all of them in the same little corridor in the tunnels, pretty much, you did almost all of those side quests, the food and the water, and jamming the communications, all in that same little space. It made it feel smaller than Novaria, which had a big open space for you to explore. And then you went off and you went to Peak 15, and that was another sizable area to explore with another kind of, if not a town, but a place with NPCs to talk and stuff like that. So... And I mean, I the whole politics of Novaria felt really interesting, as opposed to Pharos just being a war zone. And I love Benezia largely because of her voice actress, since I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
She was great.
Yeah.
That fight bugged out for me the first time, but other than that, I enjoyed that fight.
Yeah. Oh god, she can be super annoying with her biotics and bringing in her reinforcements. And there was
fuck out of the ground to play.
So okay, this is what happened to me on this playthrough. I beat her first with very little issue, and then I always do the hot labs last because I don't like going back and
dealing with the
having
guards.
to and I messed up with the Rachni. I died. They massacred me. And my last autosave was right before fighting Benezia, so I had to fight her again. And this time, I managed to get biotically pushed off of the platform onto the side of the room, and I could not get back onto the platform, so I was pretty much stuck in place. And there was one enemy left, and I couldn't really hit her. It was an Asari commando, I guess, because she was down the stairs and around a bit of a corner. And I thought for a second, oh, God, I'm going to do this the third time. And then magically, I guess, she decided to run up to me and die. So I was like... So I like that fight with Benezia, but it can be super annoying.
Yeah, this was the first fight I actually died in, too.
Pretty janky fights.
I got hit by like the double fusion tanks, and I was like, "Oh snap!" And then someone bionically stunned me, and then I was like down to nothing and couldn't heal. So,
Yeah.
The first time I fought her was on 360, and it actually bugged out for me, so I couldn't move or anything. I could shoot, but I couldn't move. It was just like literally bugged, and I was just kind of annoyed because that's another problem I have with Mass Effect 1 is the save system. By the way, if you rely on autosave, good luck, because it doesn't autosave very much.
Yeah.
So my autosave was like way before Venezia. I don't remember how much I had to backtrack through that playthrough, but I learned quickly that manually save lots.
That's fair.
Oh, since we're talking about Novaria, how did you guys like the only puzzle in the game outside of the minigames, which is the reinitializing the data core for the VI?
I thought that was cool. I manually did it. I thought it was cool. I love puzzles though, and I kind of wish there were more Mass Effect though. But I know it's not really that kind of series. But I
do like that puzzle a lot too. It was really fun to figure out.
Yeah,
and it's kind of thing where I wish there was more.
I actually, in the past, I would have to use guides. I knew I could only jump, but I didn't want to, so I would use guides that just told me, push this button, then this button, this button. This time I actually tried to logic it out, and I got it, and it made sense, and I think I like it more. I always find it interesting that is legitimately the only puzzle minigame outside of, not minigame, the only puzzle sort of thing outside of the mini games for decrypting things and stuff like that.
True.
The hacking, yeah.
There's like the laser on Therum, but that's it.
Sorry, the laser?
The laser on Therum where to rescue the R, to use the
mine. Oh, right.
Oh
yes, you're right. There are a few instances of a different mini game that involve trial and error, pressing the right buttons in the right order.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot that, honestly.
There's that one and the one with the suicidal VI or AI on the Citadel.
Yep.
And
right, yeah.
That's kind of, when you think about it, it's really weird that doesn't show up very often. The vast majority is on console, it's the Simon Says minigame, and on PC, it's the rotating rings and avoiding the evil red blocks thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting that they didn't make the memory game of pushing the right buttons in the right order and figuring out trial and error style more prominent, considering that you have two distinct different minigame or decryption. You have decryption and you have electronics, and they're treated as separate things. You're either you have to level up both in order to be able to access all of the random things you find on like Uncharted Worlds and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting that they didn't choose to split those mini games more evenly, like have one be a decryption mini game and the other be an electronics mini game.
That's fair.
But the Mass Effect 2 is divided between bypass and hacking.
Yeah, which I liked better than
I do like that.
games.
I do like that better. Yeah.
I think I kind of prefer the PC versions of the mini games as opposed to the Simon Says, because I really hate the Simon Says.
Yeah,
that can be really bad
about that.
Yeah, because sometimes the amount of time you have to push the correct button, it feels like you don't have any time at all. And I'm like, I push it, but I guess I was a split second too late, and it counts as a failure. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm down like 20 Omnigel now.
Yeah, it's an interesting skill-based thing. Yeah. But that being said, with mini games, one we didn't mention is actually of the three worlds, my favorite one is Pharos. And when you get to having to get the door clamped on the pincer to make the ship fall out of the building, when you have to adjust the pressures.
Oh,
the pressure and the...
I am so bad. I'm forgetting other mini games. Ignore what I said earlier about the one in Novaria being the only one, because you're right, that one exists.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love. I thought I like those kind of games, and it's fun, that whole trying to readjust the fluid intake, that kind of classic puzzle that they took that and spun it on its way. Although it's really weird that they built their ship that was the one thing that was holding it in there, and just the whole thing just comes tumbling out when they got so many claws on it.
Yeah,
it's just like, really, that was the straw, eh? Okay. The other thing,
maybe don't park your ships vertically on the sides of buildings,
right?
Just maybe,
or maybe leave somebody at the helm who can turn the engine on when it falls. It's just like, was there nobody in it? It just fell and was, oh, well. At any rate, the other thing I loved about, I like about Pharos is that there is a bit of that intrigue with like the corporate intrigue and stuff. And when you kind of meet that little pocket of the humans that are trying to keep their entire company's goings on hush hush, and you can kind of get in and break it in it, and they're such jerks.
Yeah.
And also, can we all talk about how Ferris has that point where you have to go down and there's no turning back when you jump down into like that tunnel, and there's like, but we can't make it back. It's a one-way trip. So humanity's finest specimen, their Spectre, is stumped by a wall that he could lift his arms up and grab and pull himself up. He just doesn't have the upper body strength to pull himself out of there. Humanity's one true savior. What games that have those weird mechanical barriers, like if they're going to make that the barrier, make it believable that it's out of our reach, that he couldn't just hop back up just because there's no jumping mechanic.
Have like a landslide or something.
Right?
You can't, yeah.
It's just like, oh, sorry, it's a one-way trip because this game doesn't have that kind of mechanic. Like, that's really what you're saying to me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It killed me when I saw it. I was just like, really? All right. This is a joke waiting to be written. But no, otherwise, I thought Pharos was pretty neat. And again, more Mako interaction. And I think I accidentally bailed off the edge when I didn't realize I could. And
I think we all
game
did
over.
at
I was
some
like,
point.
oh, okay.
Not game over.
Yeah, that was always fun, especially because it's easy to do that if you're trying to dodge the Geth shooting at you and you just keep going a little bit too far.
And if you oversteer and suddenly it goes into like the reverse mechanics, and then like the steering goes in a different direction, you're like, oh no.
I also I still think I like Novaria best, but Pharos, I think once you learn about the Thorian and you start dealing with the Thorian, that was a really interesting sort of plot twist. Finding this ancient creature that controls its other living organisms in order to do its bidding. Like that whole moment when you're in the Exogeny headquarters and the VI tells you what the Thorian is, and you realize you put two and two together and you understand now that all that weird behavior at Zoo's Hope is because they've all been infected, and then you finally go down and you see this gigantic plant-like thing, and you're like, I love that line of, we're gonna need bigger guns.
Yes.
And it's definitely, again, feels like it harkens a bit to some of the Halo stuff that was established with the Spore people and all that sort of stuff, and just that these things, this creature doesn't function through its own means. It has to enslave other races and take their genetic code to make its own kind of spawn.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That was really interesting.
And it's also like, at the time it was cool, but then once you get hit Mass Effect 3 and you learn about the history of the Reapers and the species that created them, and it's kind of interesting to have multiple different species that basically rely on their ability to indoctrinate or otherwise control other sapient species to do their bidding, and how it's interesting. And the fact that this is a creature that survived, as far as we can tell, it survived the last extermination by the Reapers, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who have theorized about what that means. Did it just survive because they didn't know about it, or did it survive because they sort of didn't want to, deal with it, or they
would it be reverse enslaving, or
yeah. So I don't know. Lots of cool possibilities, but I don't. Who knows if they even were thinking about that when they made Mass Effect 1, because we've all, I'm sure, seen sort of stories about how the direction of the story kind of changed from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 3. So you don't know. But it's interesting to think about maybe an AU in which a Reaper would have met or dealt with the Thorian before, Saren as their agent, and why they may have chosen to let the Thorian survive, if they did in fact choose to let it survive. So,
and it has a more insidious means of doing what it does, it seems, too, because I mean, the Reapers seem to be very obvious since they're big giant vessel things or whatever. Yes. Whereas like the giant space cuttlefish. Whereas like the Thorian can like burrow underground and just be under a colony or under a civilization, and no one can even know what it is that's affecting them. So it's possible they may not have just even noticed it or sensed something weird from a planet, or just like, let's leave this one alone, until they had a sentient agent who kind of could tap into, no, we can use this in a more insidious way to our benefit that won't freak everybody out like giant cuttlefish in the sky will.
Oh, I guess question: Did we all bring Liara along for Novaria, or did anyone specifically leave her behind?
Oh no, I took her just because it was Venezia. I can't remember like the lines, but she definitely had a thing or two to say to Venezia.
Yeah, I can never not bring Liara with me for that mission, because I think I experimented with it once and I just didn't like it. It felt like you get a little bit more out of Venezia, considering this is the only time you get to do anything with her because of what happens. It's also a little weird how she dies, because it almost looks like she's just giving up, and
it's really weirdly animated. It was it was a weird death.
Did her mind just like blow, or did she do it herself to end Saren's control? It's confusing. She's dead, but it's confusing as to whether or not she did it to herself, or if it just happened because she was fighting the influence too much. I don't know.
Yeah, it was never totally clear to me.
But yeah, I mean, I never felt right about not bringing Liara, just because you got a little bit more out of Venezia, and also just it felt wrong. I mean, it's a bit metagaming, because you don't know before you land on Novaria that Venezia is there. But or wait, I take that back. You do, don't you?
No, you don't actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you discover it.
Yeah,
tell you she's on that. The funny thing is, I was just brought Liara along. Even the first time I played the game, I just brought her along, and then just happy coincidence.
It's the same for me. Sorry, what were you saying, Caitlin?
No, I'm just saying this is a weird thing where you metagame it so much because you played the game so many times. Of course Venezia is there. Of course I know she's there because I've played the game 6 or 7 times, and it's like trying to remember if you're actually told that.
Filtering through the details of what the story gives you as to what your meta tells you.
Yeah, but you never told Venezia's there. She just you just know that the Geth are there. That's it.
Right. And then it comes up in the conversations with everybody else that there was a matriarch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this feeds into actually what you wanted to talk about next. Because, with my previous playthroughs, I very heavily mostly just took Liara and Rex on most of my missions. Just because I really, my character was romancing Liara and I liked her biotic powers, and Rex just bowled through everything and was rad. Whereas this time around, I've been gearing a lot more with Tali and Garrus, because I never really explored much with Garrus at all, or Tali, until I think maybe Mass Effect 3. So I'm trying to I'll give them a lot more use this time around. But same thing, once he kind of suggested that, I was like, okay, well, Garrus is telling me this, it's probably a good idea. So I went back and brought Tali and Liara with me as well. And then got really annoyed because I met the Hanar, who was like, oh, can you go smuggle a package through? I was like, I just went back to the ship. I am not going back again. I've already walked far too much over the whole facility. And you kind of move at a weird, slow pace. And the running isn't quite right for getting around quick in this thing. So, no.
And elevators.
Yes, and elevators. Exactly.
At least the ones on Novaria were different looking and were pretty, and glass elevators. They were cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although, especially when you get to Citadel for the first time, Shepard just has this innate knowledge of which way the doors are always going to open. He's for elevators. He just knows.
Okay,
it's a lot more obvious in Novaria.
You spend so much time in them. I hope so.
Yeah, that's fair. But you figure out the first few, he'd be like, "Oh, yeah, it's back there, okay." but he just happens to know every single one is where it's going to, which direction it's going to open in, and orient them accordingly. I don't know. It could have been a great opportunity for them to have like what they had in Dragon Age in the elevators of having the banter between the different characters for that kind of character building. But again, maybe they were just trying to keep that more particular to.
They do that sometimes. If you run out of news reports, there's party banter instead.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so typically with this playthrough, I'm running with Tali and Garrus more, but I did, bring Liara for that one. But is everyone running with Liara, or is anyone running with
You should try and mix it up. You should try and mix it up depending on the mission.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, same. I try to at least have someone so that, like, if I can't decrypt stuff, like, they can do it.
Yeah. I try to bring a tech specialist unless you are
mine is really low, so, yeah.
I try to, like, mix it up. One of the things I try to do is I try to, for the main story missions, to have different people, to make sure I use everyone at least once on a main story mission, and to have different sort of, combos for each main story mission. And I tried to, like, I was metaing a little bit, like, trying to pick the right kind of people. Like, Pharos, I think I was rolling with... I had Tali for sure because I knew there'd be a lot of Geth to deal with. Novaria, I brought Tali for the Geth, and I brought Liara for the biotic, for the Rachni, and for the commandos and things like that. And then, like, with the Uncharted Worlds, the Uncharted Worlds are kind of random. Like, I took Ashley and Rex last time. Maybe this time I take Rex and Caden, something like that.
So, yeah, exactly.
Unless I know for sure, if I can remember what happens on an Uncharted World, and I don't, outside of a few, I don't immediately remember from the portraits which world is which. I remembered the one with the frickin' monkey.
I forgot about that. No, I just remembered when I did it. I was like, oh god, this again.
I do want to bring that up at some point, but I feel like that's what. Yeah, I was going to talk about that in the next one when we talk about the Uncharted Worlds, because
I think that is kind of frustrating, though. Every time I go to an Uncharted World and I don't have Caden, Garrus, or Tali, I'm always like running the risk of running into a probe that I need electronics for, and my Shepard's a soldier, so I don't have electronics or decryption, so I can't do any of that stuff. And
why can't I just smash this?
Yeah.
And heaven forbid you go back to the ship and launch again.
Yeah, sadly, it's the first thing that I think about is, well, can someone decrypt this for me? All right, I'll bring them. And then I kind of fill out the other party member.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about not running a tech specialist in the first game, is that you have to bring a tech specialist along if you want to open chests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which was kind of annoying. Although, I mean, Garrus and Tali were my favorite characters. They are still, in large part, my favorite characters throughout the series. So, like, it wasn't super, hard to keep bringing them on missions. But I always would feel like, no, I gotta try and give Caden and Ashley and Liara some, squad time too. I gotta try and be fair, even if I don't like them as much from a gameplay perspective as the alien, not the alien, Liara's an alien, but as the Turian and the Quarian and the Krogan.
Yeah, whatever. Liara's got research to do. Caden gets headaches. They got other stuff to focus on. It's fine.
Yeah.
Ashley's got Christianity and her family issues. It's all kinds of stuff for them to all work out. And you can just bring Garrus and Tali, who just want to get out there and get stuff done.
And just witness the awful driving skills of Shepard with Mako.
Oh, we will talk about that.
We will.
We will be. We will definitely.
All about the Mako.
Yes.
I was going to say, I feel like we could do like a retro encounter that's just on Mako.
It'll be Mako-licious.
Oh my God.
That sounds not great at all.
That sounds like a perfect place to end the episode. What are you talking about?
Well segued.
Yes. All right. So
probably handles better.
Before I am allowed to make any more awful puns, I think we should probably wrap things up. So thank you for listening as we talk about Mass Effect the First.
For the most part.
Well, like 60% of the time.
We didn't get the achievement for talking about Mass Effect for the majority of the podcast.
Majority of the time. Yeah, that'll have to be in our next playthrough.
75%. I guess I'll have to try again later on this month or so.
This will be a true Mass Effect podcast. We'll have multiple podcast playthroughs.
Yes. And different headcanons for each.
Yeah. The next episode, Caitlin will be Renegade. Just tell us all to shut the F up constantly.
And I will be Paragon for once.
Oh, that means I can use my favorite Renegade quote from Mass Effect 1. You assume I give a damn. That's cute.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I love how Jennifer Hale says it. It's just like, oh my god.
That's so good, yeah. Well, so for this episode, that'll do it for part 1 for Mass Effect. Thanks for listening. If you've been playing along, I hope you're having a good time and that our podcast has been enjoyable for you. Next week on the retro schedule is an episode about super boss battles. So things like ultimate, super hard, this is the ultimate super, difficult, you might cry to your mom about this horrible boss battle.
And the optional ones too.
Those are the best
Which could be worse depending on which they are.
That is true.
Yeah.
And that's why they're optional.
Yes. We obviously are going to be back for a second episode, part 2 of Mass Effect, so you'll have that to look forward to later this month. Also, letting everyone know that the July game, or rather games, is going to be the Lunar and Lunar 2. It's the anniversary of Lunar, and so we're doing podcasts on the Lunar games.
That's so neat. I want to hear about those. That's one that I sadly missed out on, so I'm excited for that episode.
Other features. It's not up yet. When this episode goes live, it won't quite have been ready because people are just getting back from E3 and resting and getting all the news stories from that up and stuff like that. But we will very soon be having a special Year of the Dog feature where a variety of our editors talk about their favorite RPG doggos because it is the Year of the Dog. So... Yes. So please look forward to that, and feel free to chat at us about your favorite doggos too. If you want to email Retro Encounter, our email is retro@rpgfan.com. You can also talk to us on the forums, Twitter, on Facebook. We have a Discord server as well that you are very welcome to join and come chat with staff and awesome fans and stuff like that. As usual, please do rate, review us on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, so that we can get your feedback and we can also help others that might be interested in listening to podcasts like this discover us. We like hearing what you think about the show, and we like being able to, put these podcasts out for our listeners. So,
improve.
Yeah. So finally, for anyone who might want to chat at us specifically about anything we might have said about Mass Effect in this episode, where can people reach everyone if you want to give your social media information?
Ladies first.
I guess I'll start. You can find me at Leanne_Kazerl on Twitter and also on Discord.
I am _Salted Earth on Twitter and also Salted Earth on Discord. Though if you're on the RPG Fan Discord, I show up as just Emma.
Time for the guys.
Yeah, you can find me pretty easily. I am at Greg Delmage. Same thing on Discord. I'm pretty easy to track down by my real name.
And I am at SmashKing27 on Twitter, and you can find me on Discord, just SmashKing.
All right. Well, thanks to all of you guys for joining me for this episode. And you'll obviously hear more from us in part 2. So Stick around for that.